So you've got your drawing gridded out, or you've transferred it by using whatever method you're comfortable with, and you're getting ready to add values. Now, first thing that I want to encourage you to do is check over your drawing and just make sure that you've gotten some outlines of the values, that you didn't just outline the edges of eyes, but that you've also thought about these value changes as spaces. So I'm looking at this white spot here on the cheek, and I just want to make sure I have an outline, kind of like in that paint by numbers style. You can see even done some here on the forehead. It's kind of mapping it out for us. It allows us to go in and kind of have a plan of some of these shapes. Now you've got everything drawn out. It's an outline drawing. You placed it exactly where you wanted. You've even thought about the backgrounds, how you may want to alter that from this artist's work to create your own unique artwork. So making some changes to that photo as well. Now what you're going to want to do is get ready to start shading. And before you start shading, I really want to emphasize that you should try to eliminate as much of that grid that you may have used as possible. So if it's in an area where you haven't really drawn, if it's like in a background area, you may just want to go through and erase with the white vinyl eraser to get rid of that. If it's an area like around the nose or the eyes on your drawing, you may want to use a kneaded eraser. This will help to lighten those areas. If you drew the grid very light, you won't have a whole lot to worry about. But we just want to get those things out of there. They're going to compete with the details that we draw. Even if you shade over them, some of those lines will show up, and that'll really kind of affect all the effort you've put into capturing it. So I really like the kneaded eraser in areas like this, because even if I erase it, there's a faint bit of it left. You'll be able to see. You can go back in and kind of outline those areas. So get your contour drawing done, get your values mapped out, and then erase any of the grid drawings and go over it. So I'd spend some time on this if I were getting ready to shade the whole drawing, but I'm just going to do a portion of this. Once you finish getting the outlines, you're going to start adding values. And one of the tools I suggest using is cutting out your 10 value scale from your exercise for this. So you'll actually be able to use what you've created, where it goes from white paper all the way up to black with your full 6B. So I just cut this out with some scissors, and you can actually go around your drawing. So let's say I want to shade this area. I can place my graphite next to this and kind of see where it's at. This is a little too dark, and this is a little too light. So I'm going to be somewhere in between these. Actually, it's a little bit closer to here. So this will allow you to kind of see what you're actually doing. It will also allow you to go into some areas and compare your whites and see that you don't really have that many white areas. Even this area on the nose's highlight is more like a 1 or a 2 value, or closer to that, than actually being the white of the paper. So most of your paper is going to be shaded. And to get started with shading, I suggest starting with your 6B pencil or your darkest pencil and really outlining those darkest areas, things like the nostrils, the edges of the lips, pupils, shadows. And the reason why I start with these is because these really aren't going to change. Your darkest value can't get any darker. One of the things I notice in drawings a lot, and it's something I've struggled with, is trying to make sure that your values go dark enough. Having a good range of values from the lightest to the darkest creates more realism, creates more illusion in your drawing. So really challenge yourself to push those darks and start by putting them in. You can always work lighter from a dark area or build into those areas, but it's not going to get any darker than some of these shadows. So use your value finder, go through, identify some of these areas, and really start shading them. So I'll work from there. Another thing I like to do is start to find my lightest values, whether that's around the eyeball, and then build up. A big part of shading on a portrait is going to be layering. So I may put a layer down with the 2H, then I may do a pass of the whole drawing with an HB, then a 2B. So I'm just going to shade part of this nostril over here. I might do my first round using a 2H. And then I might come in and leave the areas that are done, and I'll come in with the next darker pencil, maybe an HB, a 2B, and I'll start just building. So only getting those areas that are truly darker and building that area up slowly. So not rushing right in, but just slowly doing passes. And then once you get a good set of values established, you can go in and you can start doing your blending and texture techniques. As you shade, really only a few tiny areas should be white, and I would encourage you to even think about shading parts of the background. One of the reasons why some of these values look so light is because they are next to darker areas. So think about shading in all the areas inside your rectangle and experimenting with using different pencil strokes and eraser and blending techniques.